First of all, let me congratulate your team for being invited to participate in this very rigorous process. And thank you for dedicating your time and efforts into creating a new charter school for us in our district. If you've not met me, I know I met most of you when you walked in, but if you've not, I'm Jeff McCann. I am the Choice and Charter Schools Coordinator for Rutherford County Schools, and this is our charter application review team in front of you, consisting of members of the central office staff, local administrators, parents, and board members. So we'll start out by introducing ourselves, but first of all, let me go over a few details about the interview. First of all, if you do need to excuse yourself to go to the restroom, the nearest one is right out that exit door and to your left. Okay, they're right there. So feel free to take a break as you need to. This interview is scheduled to last approximately 90 minutes. We hope to keep it within that time frame, but it's okay if we run a little bit long, depending upon the questions that we would have for you and you have for us. We'll take about 5 to 10 minutes for introductions and get a brief opening statement from you as well. I know you've prepared one for us. And then we'll dedicate the bulk of the time, approximately 70 minutes, to the questions that we have already listed that we would like to ask you. And with 10 minutes at the end for you to ask questions of us and anybody else to ask any remaining questions or get any more details that we might need. As you speak, whenever you are chosen to speak, and it doesn't matter, you can designate a specific person to answer each one of your questions depending upon your area of expertise. That's always recommended. But do make sure you turn your microphone on when you speak. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the Rutherford County Schools YouTube channel. So you will have access to that, but you want to make sure you're heard. So make sure that you hit the button whenever you talk. And if any of you need to get up to speak, you're welcome to come to the podium. That microphone works as well. But it looks like most of you are in proximity. I don't know there's one microphone that doesn't seem to work on that desk right there, and it may be that one. But this one I think you can probably pass around. There you go. Okay. So all of us have read your entire application and have developed these questions that we talked about to get some more clarifying information today. You've been through this process many times yourself, as I know you are a highly experienced charter organization. It's relatively new to us in Rutherford County. This is only the second year that we've had applications. No, I take that back. We've had applications for the last couple of years, but the second year I've been in this role and conducting capacity interviews. So, try to limit your responses to 2 to 3 minutes per question. We have approximately 24 questions, and that will get us within that 90-minute time frame. And please forgive me if I try to speed up the process a little bit, because we do want to be respectful of everyone's time. But at the same time, we want to get responses to all the questions that we have and to answer your questions too. So, okay? Okay, so we're going to start out with introductions from the head table here. We'll go around and introduce each one of us, and then I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourselves. And please, when you do that, state your role in the application process and or your role in the management organization or the new charter school itself, okay? And then you may proceed with your opening statement, okay? Let's start down here. Ms. Barnes.
Hi there, Angela Barnes, Principal at Wilson Elementary.
I'm Unisha Campbell, Principal at Kittrell Elementary.
Larissa Westerfield, Coordinator of Teaching and Learning.
Frances Rosales, I'm a school board member for Rutherford County Schools, serving in the Zone 7. That's the Blackman and a little bit of Smyrna.
I'm Lisa Kegler. I'm one of the K-5 ELA instructional specialists for the district.
Butch Vaughn, school board member, Zone 6.
Hi, I'm Annie Ralston. I'm the Coordinator of Special Education here in Rutherford County.
Trey Lee, Chief Operations Officer.
Susan Epps, Elementary Math Specialist for the district.
Shannon K. Wood, Accounting Supervisor.
Emily Madison, a Rutherford County School parent.
And I'm Mark Gully, and I'm the Director of Special Populations and Federal Programs.
Thank you all. It's good to be here. And thank you to the Rocket Ship team for being here. I will quickly give a brief introduction and then invite the Rocket Ship team to share a little bit about themselves, and then we'll jump into our presentation. So by way of introduction, my name is Eric Daly, the Executive Director for Rocket Ship Public Schools here in Tennessee. I have 15 years of education experience as a teacher, as a principal, and as an executive, specifically with Teach for America, where we recruited and developed about 2,000 teachers to Tennessee to support districts across the country. and as a consultant, where I supported work here in the southeast region of the country, including Tennessee. So excited to be here and excited to share more with you all about Rocketship, our hopes for Rutherford County, and the partnership we hope to pursue with all of you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erin Lynn. I'm the Associate Director for Integrated Special Education for Rocketship Public Schools here in Tennessee.
Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Easter Kaur. I'm the Chief Academic Officer with Rocketship Public Schools.
Good morning. My name is Tajima Still. I am Director of Schools for Rocketship, Tennessee. I've been in education for 18 years, 10 years with Rocketship.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Kenesha Hairston, and I am the Senior Director of Special Education. I've been with Rocketship for 10 years now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Newman. I'm the VP for our program team for our East Coast regions. This is my 9th year with Rocketship.
Hi, Benjamin Carson, CFO, Rocketship Public Schools.
Hello, Lupe Myers, Director of Community Organizing for Rocketship Public Schools, Tennessee, and I've spent over a decade working on education policy, expanding opportunities for families and students, and excited to be here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Heredia, Chief Legal Officer for the network. I've been working with public charter schools for over 30 years throughout California and across several states. And delighted to be here, and really wanted to say I appreciate the deep read that you all gave the 1,000 pages we submitted.
Lamar Wade, Chief People Officer for the network, but I actually sit here in Nashville.
Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be here. My name is Damon Hardy, and I am the Chief of Staff for Rocketship, Tennessee, and I've been with Rocketship for 2 years now.
Thanks, Rocketship team, and we're going to make sure that we get these mics adjusted as best we can as we go through. Just a quick process update. The folks at this table will sort of take our academic plan and design questions, which I believe will be sort of our first set of questions, and then we'll swap out a couple of functional experts to provide intel on finance, operations, and governance. I'm going to quickly, if you would give me grace, provide a little bit of context with the presentation on the screen. It may mean that you tilt your chairs just a little bit so that you can see, or you can see here. So what this hopes to do is to provide a little bit of context on Rocketship, our model, our mission, and our history. We're going to make sure that the projection is working. Oh, it's the Wi-Fi. You should have. And if it's best to do the PDF, it's fine.
Here we go.
All right, let's hope that it stays up, and I will make this as quick as possible to be a good steward of time. So the hope here is that we provide a little bit of context about Rocketship, about our hopes for Rutherford County, and the partnership we hope to pursue with all of you before we dig into the application. First things first, our mission is really simple. How do we ensure that we can scale high-quality elementary schools across the country, but specifically here in Tennessee, that unlock the potential and opportunity for all students? We've been doing this work in Tennessee for over a decade. And one of the things we're most proud of is the seminal research that suggests that our model is not only closing the gap, but it's busting the gap. You'll see on the screen a study out of Stanford in 2023 that suggests that our work is just not stacking good days, but it's stacking lots of good days for students. And so our students at our schools are learning 96 additional days of instruction in reading and 138 additional learning days in math. Again, we believe if you can stack that kind of progress over time, we can certainly ensure that students are on a stronger trajectory in their educational experiences. As I mentioned, we've been in Tennessee for 10 years. You'll see on the screen the students and families that we serve. Over 90% of them are students and families of color. Nearly 40% of them are English language learners, which we're excited to share a little bit more about our model there. And roughly 13% are students with learning differences. We're also incredibly proud of our track record here in Tennessee. Over the last 5 years, out of the last 5 years, 4 of those years, our schools have been level 4 and level 5, and then you'll see on the screen the reward school designations that our schools have received starting in 2028 and as most recent as 2023. And so the work that we're doing is not only showing up in the work that we're doing with our students and families, but it's being recognized by our constituents across the state. A quick deep dive into our model, and we hope we can share more about the nuances here. But the high-level summary here is that our approach is rooted in 3 pillars. The first is personalized learning that we'll talk more about, talent development, ensuring that the adults in the rooms have the right mindsets, have the right skills, and have the right dispositions to support our families. And then the third pillar, which we're deeply excited about, is parent power. And I think it went out again. And that is okay. For the sake of time, oh, it's back. Okay. I think it's back. Very quickly, our personalized learning pillar hinges on these 4 pieces of our instructional model. I won't dig deeply into them, but we have a rotational model at Rocketship that ensures that all students are receiving exactly what they need throughout the full day. So leveraging adaptive online programs, whole group instruction, which we know is important, differentiated targeted support, and certainly independent learning. We're going to talk a little bit more about our schedule, which allows us to execute this sort of model. Additionally, we know special populations are important, not just with the 3 schools we currently operate, but also here in Rutherford County. So you'll see language here around our English language learners staffing program, ensuring that we've got dedicated instructors to provide explicit small group instruction, certified humanities teachers that are EL certified at every grade level, and certainly a very strong integrated special education team, inclusive of paraprofessionals, psychologists, and related service providers to meet the needs of all of our students. And then finally, you see that we leverage a number of tailored interventions that ensure, again, that that first pillar of our model, personalized learning, is at the core of the work that we do. Additionally, it's not just about the mind, it's also about the heart and the spirit of our students. And so we have values that we inculcate across our campuses with our students. Those values are personalized for the campuses, the unique situations of each campus. We have a MTSS program that certainly leverages best practices to ensure that the social and emotional well-being of our students is attended to. We have assessments that ensure that our services are targeted and specific. And then finally, I think it goes without saying that culture really drives the work that we do in our buildings. And so ensuring that there's joy, ensuring that we've got strong systems and practices to encourage that kind of joy in not only our students, but our staff members and families. The second pillar, very quickly, is around talent development. Schools only go as far as the adults in the building go, and we deeply believe that the professional development of our staff members are important. There are a number of things you'll see listed here, from one-to-one leader coaching to network-led professional development. I think the thing that is most important to call out here is that our teachers receive 210 hours of professional development throughout the year. And our schedule is built around ensuring that that professional learning is not happening at the expense of staff members, but it's happening as part of the school infrastructure. We'll talk more about our data cycles and our Thursday early release days so that teachers are not inconvenienced, but it is a part of the process of our development for staff members. And then finally, Parent Power, which we're really excited about, having engaged with parents here in Rutherford County since we've submitted our application. This is at the core of our work, and I think it's what sets us apart. This pillar is not indispensable. It is absolutely required for our schools to operate at high levels. Ensuring that our families receive home visits every year helps to shift the power dynamic. It is not us sort of telling you what we're going to do to you or for you. It is really about helping to co-create an experience for students, which starts with the family. And then finally, as we think about a founding school, particularly in Rutherford County, our founding parents play a pivotal role in helping to create the culture that they want their students to experience, all the way from naming the school to providing intel on what the core values of the school should be, and also helping to choose what enrichment opportunities will be provided to students. And so you might have seen that the placeholder for the name of this school is TN4. That is intentional because we believe parents should have agency and voice in naming the school that they choose to attend their students to. And then finally, why Rutherford County? Why this school at this time? There are really three things that drove us to pursue this charter application. The first is the population growth here in Rutherford County is absolutely exploding. You all know this because you work here and you feel it and you experience it. But that population growth provides us an opportunity to maybe attend to some of the utilization of our schools. And so we see a partnership with you all in helping to alleviate some of the overutilization that might be occurring in some of our schools, particularly north of the county. The second is that underserved and diverse populations still exist, not just in Rutherford County, but across the state of Tennessee. And we have a track record of supporting those students, whether they are students with learning differences, early English language learners, or the like. And we know that that population is growing rapidly. And then finally, which I think is important to call out, our track record of success is really important. We are not pitching an idea. We're really pitching an opportunity to partner with Rutherford County to help scale the best practices that we know have worked, not only here in Tennessee, but really across the country. Very quickly, you all know this data more than we know this data, but population growth is not just hitting our economy. It's not just hitting the need to build new houses and housing units. It's also impacting our schools. And so you can see here, which I'm sure you all are fully aware of, that the utilization of some of our schools might be creating an experience that presents an opportunity for us to support. Also, underserved students. For us, we've historically served these students well. Our newest campus, which is in Antioch, you'll see their results just in their first year compared to the local district. Special education, economically disadvantaged ELL students and students of color, we have historically outperformed the local district here. Gives you some flavor about the kind of programs we provide and the outcomes that come with it. And then finally, as I mentioned before, this is not an idea. This is really about enlisting a partnership with Rutherford County so that we can, in partnership with all of you, expand choice and an opportunity for another high-quality elementary school here in Rutherford County. The images here are of our newest campus, which we opened 3 years ago in Antioch. If you ever want a sort of idea of what is possible with Rocketship, this is what's possible. Really strong academic results, a really strong community, and a very strong partnership with the state in ensuring that students are receiving exactly what they need. I won't go through this because we're going to dig into it a little bit during the conversation today, but as I mentioned, all of our schools have earned a level 4 or 5 nearly every year, and you'll see sort of the distinctions here by school, levels 4 and 5 primarily. And then finally, I will just add here, it isn't about any of the adults in this room as much as we like to think that it is. It is not about Rocketship for sure. It really is about the faces and the smiles of the students on this screen. Those are students at our Nashville Northeast campus. We are excited about what a partnership could look like here in Rutherford County. It goes without saying that you all are a high-performing school district. And for us to be a part of that kind of community only helps all of us. And so we're excited to share more today. And again, thank you for indulging us for the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, to start with just a sort of an introductory type question, we'd like for you to describe for us the process used to write the application and how you adapted your typical application. I know you've written many in the past to meet the needs of Rutherford County or to address Rutherford County. Talk to us about that.
Such a great question, and I think at the core of our process is what we call a green lighting process, which includes certainly local staff members here in Rocketship, here in Tennessee, and also functional experts across our organization to ensure that we are covering all of the inputs that could impact a successful stand-up of a new school. That process is really 12 to 18 months before we start any new school. So we have actually poured over data from Rutherford County, our own results, the trends here in Tennessee, and have taken a pretty methodical approach to considering how might we operate? Have we earned the right to grow here in Tennessee? What's our financial and staffing model? And many of the functional experts here have been a part of that process. As I mentioned, that is sort of a full year's worth of interrogation and research that led us to the writing of this application, which is led by multiple functional teams at Rocketship, including our regional team. And it allows us to ensure that we're meeting the nuanced needs, not just of Tennessee, but also of Rutherford County. This is not sort of a one-size-fits-all, although we are a national network. We really have ensured that we're speaking to the specific needs, and much of that is because of this long runway of green lighting process that allowed us to do that.
Yeah, I know this has been in the works for a while. That you had submitted a letter of intent even last year to apply, so I know it's been in the works. So, but if you're approved, talk to us. What do you think your biggest challenges are going to be between now and opening day, and how do you plan to meet them?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. The first is, we want to learn more about Rutherford County. This would be a Rutherford County school, which means we want to ensure that we are learning the history, we're learning the unique needs of this community. We're also meeting with many of you, touring your schools, to the principals on the panel, touring the districts of the board members that are here. So I would say the first opportunity would be to really understand Rutherford County in a deep way and to talk to the folks who are living and breathing this every day. I think the second opportunity, which we know is one of the most important considerations, is enrollment. We know that you have 3 existing charter schools here. We know that there are lots of different sort of experiences that those charter schools have had. But as a CMO and as an organization that has done this work for 10 years, we know that recruiting families is at the heart of our work. Without students, there are no schools. And so we intend to continue some of the engagement work we've been doing in Rutherford County, connecting with parents, meeting with daycare owners, connecting with institutions of higher learning, talking to other families here in the community. So making sure that we have a strong pool of students. We make sure that they're a part of the process in standing up the school. And then finally, I will say, as an organization that has been exclusively Nashville, what we want to make sure we are able to do is to fully bring Rutherford County into the fold of Rocketship, Tennessee. And that is making sure that all families and others have opportunities to visit our schools, that we've got opportunities to visit the Rutherford County schools. We see those as opportunities, and we're excited about those opportunities, which sort of led us to submit this application.
Great, thanks. Now we'll head into some questions focused on the academic plan and design.
Hi. Could you explain for us, you have that STEM and humanities pathways. So how are those incorporated into your school's objective where it says to accelerate academic achievement for all students, specifically for student subgroups?
Thanks for the question. I'll probably defer to our academics team. Mostly we'll start with our CAO.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the question. So I first want to start with the specialization and maybe break down the schedule a bit so it helps you think about and visualize the school day. Our students typically will receive about 160 to 180 minutes of literacy instruction. They receive about 90 minutes, anywhere between 70 to 90 minutes of math instruction, and they receive about 40 minutes of enrichment instruction. They'll also receive about anywhere between 50 to 70 minutes of learning lab instruction. Now let me break down each of those different blocks. The best way I would say to think about this is to think of a middle school or high school bell schedule, right? So students rotate between classes and you have teachers who are specialized in their specific field. And that's how we operate all of our elementary schools. Our teachers will either teach math, or they will teach literacy, and we integrate social studies as a part of that as well, and science instruction. And then they experience enrichment. And enrichment is really tailored to the local school and community. So for example, in some of our schools, we have gardening, we might have art, we might have ballet folklorico. There's a wide array of enrichments that we offer, but they really kind of depend on the interest of our students and community. And then we have our learning lab time. So when Eric was speaking about the additional instructional days that students receive based off of the Credo study, right? Our students experience about anywhere between 5 to 7 months of accelerated learning based off of our model. That learning lab time is really, really important, and especially during the pandemic, folks started to realize that high dosage tutoring is really important to accelerate student learning outcomes, either to remediate or to accelerate them. So our students during that block receive a wide array of materials as well. They might receive one-to-one tutoring with the tutoring specialist. They might receive additional enrichment opportunities, such as Lego robotics, and they'll have time to engage in online learning programs, which are highly differentiated and personalized for each student. So they are dependent on where the student is starting, what their personalized goals are for the year, and they're working more independently through that process. Sometimes the question comes up around, well, is a student only ever receiving tutoring? And the answer is no. They receive services, so they'll receive tutoring, they'll receive the enrichment component as well, and they'll have an opportunity to work on their individualized learning plan as well. So the broader question was around how do we serve students? We focus on making sure that our teachers are highly specialized, that our tutors are highly specialized. We spend a ton of time in their professional development, making sure that they are specialists in the work that they do. They receive a ton of real-time coaching and feedback, and we have lots of feedback loops for folks to give feedback, for us to be able to edit materials, and to respond to the needs of the school. Lots of data analysis cycles, progress monitoring, individualized learning plans, so that we are meeting the needs of all of our students.
I've got a question for you. It's got two components to it. How did you determine the level of need for the opening of your school, and how was community input obtained?
It's such a great question, and important that it's coming from a board member. So thank you for the question. So the need or opportunity for a high quality school here in Rutherford County really hinges on two of the things that were named in the presentation. The first is how do we ensure that every student in Rutherford County, specifically special populations, our English language learners, our students with special, with learning differences are receiving just as a high quality education. And because of our track record in doing that in Nashville, we see an opportunity for us to scale those particular services here in Rutherford County. I think also an opportunity, which I alluded to, you've got great elementary schools here. And what we are hearing from parents is that while those options are great, there is still a desire for even more opportunities here in Rutherford County, particularly newer families who are moving into the county. We know that many of our elementary schools are at or very near capacity. And so ensuring that we honor the good work that is happening in all of those schools while also offering another option for families in Rutherford County certainly led us to submit the application today. I think core in this answer is that for us, another good option is always a good thing for families. And we believe that in partnership with Rutherford County, our model will speak to the needs, particularly of families who have students with learning differences or English language learners, but also will help us learn from your model. What is working in many of your elementary schools, and how do we build a partnership that really brings the best to bear across both of our organizations? Very finally, Board Member Vaughn, I'll just say that our family recruitment team has been hard at work here in Rutherford County, tabling, canvassing, knocking on doors, meeting families. We just left a meeting at Motlow State Community College this morning, really gauging interest, identifying potential partnerships and needs. And what we are consistently hearing is, yes, Rutherford County is a great school district, and yes, we'd be interested in learning more about another option. And that doesn't take anything away from Rocketship or from Rutherford County. It just means we all are able to do more and do better for the students here in Rutherford County.
Okay, you pretty much answered this, but just so that I have my notes correctly, I'm going to go ahead and ask again. But just interested in hearing a little more about the 4 content blocks, that structure that you have, and how adequate instructional minutes are allotted to ELA, science, and social studies during the school day.
Thank you. Yeah, so the 4 blocks are humanities, STEM, enrichment, and learning lab. And if helpful, I can break down the minutes again. We usually use some approximations and get more specific down to the minute when we build out the bell schedule, but it's usually about 180 minutes for humanities instruction, 90 minutes of STEM instruction, 90 minutes of learning lab, and 40 minutes of enrichment. And so students will rotate through each of those 4 blocks every day.
Can I piggyback on that just a second, just for clarity? Can you talk a little bit more clearly about science and social studies? As those, where do those fit in?
Yeah, great question. So science instruction is embedded in both math and our humanities blocks, and social studies instruction is embedded in our humanities block. And we use, if helpful, I can talk a little bit about the curriculum. We use Amplify CKLA in our humanities instructional blocks. We use Eureka Math Squared in our math blocks, and we use Discovery Science in our science block as well.
So that sort of answers a little bit of my question. I think, so Eureka Squared for math. In the application, it said that CKLA Amplify was only for K2, so is there a specific curriculum that you use for 3-5 for ELA?
Yes, sorry, we also use CKLA integrated. So we use CKLA skills for K2, CKLA knowledge for K2, and CKLA integrated for 3-5.
Okay, and then say science one more time.
Discovery.
And then what about social studies?
We also use Amplify CKLA.
And then just a quick question regarding, so how will you ensure that it's going to meet the standards of Tennessee? A little bit throughout your application, you referred to Common Core, and I'm sure you're well aware that we have Tennessee state standards. So if you could just elaborate on that.
Yes, thank you. So that was a Scrivener's error, and we apologize for that. We are aware that Tennessee prohibits the use of Common Core, and we then underwent some curriculum adoption processes several years back to ensure that we are deeply aligned to the Tennessee state standards. So what our team did is we took a look at the adoption list, the approved adoption list by the Tennessee Department of Education, and we went through a process to engage all of the local stakeholders, so our teachers, school leaders, students, families, to solicit feedback on the adoption list, the different types of resources. So for example, I think Wit and Wisdom is one of the approved curricula, Wonders is another approved curricula. We dove into each of those different lessons, unit plans, and then ultimately walked away with the understanding that CKLA would best meet the needs of our students, and so underwent that adoption process. We are committed, of course, to making sure that we are in alignment with all of Tennessee state standards, and our current 3 schools use curricula that is approved by the Tennessee Department of Education.
I have one more follow-up question. So I'm not sure about with CKLA or Amplify, but I know when we were adopting Eureka, there was no online component to that, and I know you talked about a little bit about the blended learning and what do you use for the online components for the students to utilize?
Yeah, really great question. So we actually we use a series of different online learning programs. Amplify Boost for our humanities instruction. For math, we use iExcel at Tennessee, and we actually did a deeper dive on the analysis, and we found that students who were engaging with the recommended dosage of iExcel were seeing significant positively correlated data to NWA and state assessments, and so we were encouraged by the usage of iExcel across all of our 3 Tennessee campuses.
Okay, good morning. So myself and Dr. Ralston are going to ask you guys a few questions about your special populations, and you've alluded to that in your presentation. I'm going to talk specifically or ask a few questions about your English learners. And as you guys mentioned in your presentation as well, we continue to grow rapidly as a school district, but specifically with our English learners. So in the past 10 years, especially in our Smyrna and Laverne area, the northern end of the county, we've gone from about 2,500 English learners to today about 8,700. So that is a student population that's near and dear to our heart. And Dr. Ralston's going to ask you some specific questions about students with disabilities. But my first question is, talk to us a little bit about what is your goal or what is your work with English learners looking like at Rocketship?
Thank you for that question. We have also seen a huge growth in our numbers of English language learners, so we are right there with you. At Rocketship, we want to ensure that EL planning and assessment aligns with our Tennessee state regulations in order to be in compliance, but we also want to make sure that we are offering high-quality education for our students. And we've really found by doing this, we need to invest in 5 buckets. The first one is the clear and codified identification process, so making sure that our OMs and our SIS teams are aware of how we identify English language learners, and we all know it starts with the home language survey, and then making sure students are appropriately screened. Based off our district, for one district, we screen in-house, and for the next district, we send students out to be screened. And then based off their scores, we have our parent notification process, and then we determine whether they will be a WAVE student or an active student, and then create the ILP to support them. We do ILP monitoring, so we do our quarterly monitoring. We were using the WIDA to support with progress monitoring, and then with the switch to ELPA, we used DIBELS this year. And then we are in the process of looking for more of an ELPA-aligned standard screener to make sure that we're focused on language acquisition when we're progress monitoring our students. The next is our staff development. We know that in order to meet the needs of all of our English language learners, you have to have strong Tier 1 instruction, and so that means we're investing in our teachers to make sure that they understand those ELPA standards, also the identification process and the support process for our students, that they are well equipped to provide best practices in all of their instruction. That they're incorporating ELPA standards within instruction, and that they are using each EL strategies in each lesson, so total body response, TPR, universal strategies, and all that stuff. It just makes sure that we're creating strong Tier 1 instruction. We know students spend the majority of their day in Tier 1, so we got to have a high impact there. We also have our EL certified teachers that provide direct instruction based off state regulations. And those teachers, we invest a lot of time in supporting them to understand what strong direct instruction looks like so that they are focused on language acquisition. We also are investing in a EL intervention for our students that aligns with our Gen Ed curriculum so that students are getting multiple at-bats at grade level curriculum and high rigor, but also getting language support throughout it. And so we also focus on our collaborative structures. So we know that in order to have clear co-teaching models for English language learners, you have to have three components, the co-teaching, the co-planning, and the co-assessment. So we make sure that those are built into our bell schedules to support the amount of English language learners for each of our campus. So we have multiple models for depending on how many English language learners we have. That directly relates to how many ML instructors you need to, certified ML instructors you need to have. These teams work together to do co-planning. They also work together to do data analysis. And this just ensures that all of our students are getting the appropriate accommodations for each assessment, but also during each lesson.
I'll just quickly say that in the application, and you can tell we've been digging into this, we're projecting about 40% of the population of our new school here in Rutherford County to be identified as English language learners, which I imagine is commensurate with the numbers that you all are saying, but we know it is core to standing up a strong school here in Rutherford County.
Yes, sir.
I can also share that one of our schools is currently at 50% English language learners, and another school is very close behind, so we're very used to having to adjust based off population changes throughout the year.
Yep. My other question is, you alluded to this when you were talking earlier about the shift to ELPA. Talk to us about, throughout the application process, how did you ensure that you were going by the latest information that we're receiving from the Tennessee Department of Education as it pertains to English learners?
Yes, so we have strong partnerships with our current districts that we work in, so MMPS and TPCSC. So really leaning on them because they get the information first and then filter it down to us. I meet monthly with our TPCSC team to ensure that we review all student populations, our numbers, what's happening, things that are coming up. ELPA was a big one this year. We did a lot of planning for ELPA because nobody knew what it looked like and the information was coming slow and steady. So we were able to provide, receive professional development from them and then turnkey professional development to our school and staff and EL instructors to make sure that they were prepared. We have an amazing assessment team that leaned in and supported us with figuring out the TIDE portal. I get TIDE and KITE confused sometimes because they're very similar. And making sure that our students were rostered correctly so that when it came down to giving the ELPA assessment, that technology and rostering was not in the way.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Almost noon, so it's almost afternoon. But what is your plan for working with students with disabilities?
You want to take this one, or Kanisha? We'll probably invite our Director of Integrated Special Education, Kanisha Harrington, to maybe jump in.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. As we spoke to earlier, serving our special education population is key to us, and you can see that throughout our key pillars. And so between myself and Aaron, we'll definitely speak to this question for you. And so jumping back to our block structure, right? When we think about serving our students through those 4 different blocks, a key pillar there is our model of inclusion and co-teaching. We serve the majority of our students through our co-teaching model. Our students with special education needs spend the bulk of their day within the general education classroom. However, we also know that our students at times, depending upon their IEPs and their level of needs, they also need foundational skills, right? And so we also gap fill for our students. However, we know that it is very critical that we do that at a key time so that they're not missing out on instruction. And so with that, in addition to the co-teaching, we lean in during that personalized learning. We lean in during that personalized learning block time. And so thinking about that lab, those minutes are when we really zone in on additional small group intervention time. And so this can be for math or STEM, and at times is also for social, emotional, and behavior for our students. But this really allows for us to support our special education students from all ends through that co-teaching model as well as through small group instruction.
It's okay. We have a very strong model to support our students with disabilities, and as Kenesha stated, because we have specialized block structures, we find the most appropriate time to provide the push-in support, so those co-teaching structures, but also the most appropriate time to provide small group instruction, that pull-out support, so that there's limited disruption to students receiving Tier 1 instruction. We know the less they are exposed to it, the more gaps that occur. So in the morning, for example, all of our students start with social emotional learning. Our special education staff pulls students who have social emotional learning in their IEPs, and they do specialized learning with them based on how intensive of the need it is, which is outlined in their IEPs. For small group instruction, we have research-based interventions that our staff is very well trained on, that actually have progress monitoring built within the week, so that it's not an extra service we have to find time for our teams, as well as just a strong collaboration of our school psychologists, our speech and language pathologists, access to occupational therapists, physical therapists. We have contractors that support with audio and vision support with our students, as well as a lot of consult for behavior if we have an extended need for it.
Okay. You led me right into my next question, so that was great. So what are the staffing plans for the first few years, especially with your contract providers, like OT, PT, things like that?
Yeah. So our staffing plan really does depend on how many students we have with disabilities. We like to keep our ratio for teacher to student as low as possible, so that one, it's manageable, and that two, that we call them ISE specialists, so exceptional education teachers are able to target instruction for their team. So it would really base off the model. One of our schools, we currently have 3 specialists, some parapros. Each of our campus has a speech and language pathologist that is in-house, so they are there 5 days a week to provide services and collaboration. And then we have an occupational therapist for each campus. One of them is in-house, 2 are contracted out, depending on just the level of need for that service for that campus. We have a physical therapist that is contracted out that goes to each campus a week because that need is a little bit less, as well as a school psychologist for one of our campus because it has a higher need, and then we have a school psychologist that supports both our campus. Now, with that being said, sometimes you need more support, and then we have a great system of support here where we're able to pivot and find the support that we need for our students. And for example, we had a student who had vision impairment that was possibly interested at our school, and because of those strong partnerships we have with our external providers, we were able to have them come in, sit on the meeting, and then determine if it was an appropriate placement for them.
Okay.
No, I was just going to add here, I think our application enumerates projecting 3 special education teachers in year 1. That is consistent with how we have stood up other schools. I would say the benefit of being a part of an existing network, which I hope you all appreciate, is that we're able really to pull from the best of what's happening, not only at Rocketship and our 3 campuses here, but also from you all. And so this is really about scaling something that exists and not necessarily having to build it from the ground up. We know that brings quite a bit of challenges. And so I think with our special populations, we'll be able to really leverage the best of what's happening across both of our organizations to serve the students here in Rutherford.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question. With the plans for possibly contracting some of the services out, we have run into this in our current situation with some charter schools. What is the backup plan for Rocketship if the contract services cannot be provided? They can't provide a person, an OT or a PT or whoever, when it's written in the IEP?
Yeah. That is a great question, and we have multiple external partners, and so we found that with those multiple external partners, we were able to staff all of our positions, especially when you're thinking about occupational therapy, speech and language. We also have an internal hiring director who supports with finding licensed SLPs, occupational therapists, and we have a network of support that can be provided to onboard those teams to make sure that they have the correct support that they needed, as well as I regionally support them in order to make sure that they're abiding by Tennessee special education regulations, because that is very important.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's change directions a little bit, going to recruitment and marketing. How do you intend to generate interest and recruit sufficient students in the area of intended services, given that a large number of families speak languages other than English or Spanish?
Thank you for the question. I'll tee up our Chief of Staff and Lupe Myers to jump in. Before they do, I will just say, as I mentioned, I believe earlier, many of our existing schools have a similar level of diversity. And what we have found, not only leveraging our home visit structure, not only allowing parents and ensuring that parents are part of our school experience, but leveraging the community to ensure that we're tapping into every asset of the community, not just to sort of recruit and enroll students, but to sustain that experience when the school is in operation. So certainly we're leveraging our family recruitment team to ensure that we're meeting our enrollment targets. Notably, our newest school, our school in Antioch, has a wait list and has been fully enrolled, was one of the largest elementary schools to open in their first year. So we're pretty fluent in sort of enrolling students, recruiting families, but keeping them. Our retention of families is near 90% across all of our campuses. And so we're excited to dig deeper into recruitment strategies that speak to the needs of Rutherford County, particularly families with language differences. And so I'll pass it maybe to Damon Hardy to share more about our recruitment efforts, and then potentially Lupe.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Eric, for that context. So obviously we have the existing schools in Nashville, and as Eric has shared, our school in Antioch has a very similar demographic, or serves a similar pool of students that we think Tennessee 4, a Rutherford County school, will serve. And so we really leverage that recruitment team and the skills that we've built over the years we've been using them to come down in Rutherford County. As we get into the stage of standing up the school, we'll bring in folks who are of the community in Rutherford, who knows the infrastructure of Rutherford County. We're constantly hiring and bringing folks onto our team that reflects our community, that speak different languages, and acknowledging that we serve families that speak a variety of languages. In addition, we also partner with, and we also build relationships with daycares in the community. And so we've done some of that legwork in Rutherford County already, of where we have tabled at daycares and talked with parents to understand their interest in a school in Rutherford County. And then I call it boots on the ground work. We're also in the community knocking on doors, letting families know that this is who we are, this is the process that we're in, are you interested in a school here? And so we anticipate bolstering and kind of beefing up that operation as we move forward with standing up a school and recruiting families to come in. And I should share that, as Eric shared, I would just like to restamp again that our school in Antioch, Rocket Ship Dream Community Prep, its first year of operation, it had a wait list of about 70 families. Its second year, it had a wait list of 130 families. And the way that we're tracking this year, we anticipate that wait list being larger this year. And then another piece of information to add on there, we know that Antioch area and the northern portion of Rutherford County, there's a lot of families move back and forth between that boundary. So we've had just this year about 30 families that have had to unenroll from our Rocket Ship Dream Community Prep campus and move down into Rutherford County and are interested in having a Rocket Ship school there and would really like to stay at Rocket Ship, but just because of the boundaries of the school district can't. So we think that we have like a really nice foundation to build upon here.
Only other thing I would add here, as we continue to engage the community, we've got information sessions that are scheduled next month, the 12th and the 14th, to ensure that families are hearing directly from us about not only our model, but also hearing from them about what they would like to see in a new school. I would also just note that we've got about close to 30 staff members, current staff members who work in who work across the three campuses in Nashville that live in Rutherford County. I think a part of the interest is also tapping into their experiences as current Rocket Ship staff members, but folks who live and support businesses here in Rutherford County. So we anticipate the interest only surging as we continue to engage families. A final point to Butch Vaughn, your question about special populations and really allowing them to access information. All of the things that have been shared are true, and we also provide translation services for those families to ensure that they are able to access information in ways that are specific and appropriate for them based on the languages that they're speaking.
Thank you. Why would parents want to enroll their students in your school?
You're the parents, is that right? Okay. Yeah. It is. It's such a good question, and it's such a refreshing question. Here's what I would say. I am not a parent. I think I've shared with some of you, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, but have spent about 6 or 7 years living and working here in Tennessee, Middle and East Tennessee. And if you'd ask any of the parents of the 1,500 students that currently are choosing Rocket Ship, I think the first thing they will tell you is that Rocket Ship cares. I think so much of the experience is about the culture and the emotions that we invoke for our families who legitimately just want the best experience for their students. Many of them don't distinguish between charter or non-charter. Many of them aren't interested in some of the politics, as you all know, that go with education. They just want their kids to have the very best experience that sets them up to have as many opportunities as they want. And so I believe that parents would share with you that Rocket Ship cares, and because of that level of care, they see it in the way we speak, they see it in the way that we engage with them, and they see it in the ways that their students talk about their experience at Rocket Ship. So that would be the first. I think the second thing that I think parents would share with you, and it's connected to that third pillar that I shared. Parent power is not just 2 words that we put on a screen. It is really at the core of our work. It is what sets us apart, we believe, bringing parents in as partners to this work, not just to advocate for their students, but to advocate for their communities. And so I think parents would say that Rocket Ship is also a place where they feel supported, not just to ensure that their students are meeting benchmarks and having a good time, but they're being developed in ways that elevate their voice, that increase their agency, and that allow them to have more opportunities as adults and as parents. So those are 2 of the things that I will say. I'll invite all of you to come to our schools and maybe to talk to a couple of families who are consistently there to hear more about their experience at Rocket Ship. Thank you so much for that question.
Thank you. So from the student's perspective, why would students want to enroll in your school? And also, how many letters of intent to enroll do you have currently?
Yeah, so I'll take the second question first. We have not issued any formal letters of intent given this process. What is provided in the application is a sampling of letters of support, intent, informal letters of support and intent from families. It is not an exhaustive list. I know we have about 100 parent signatures of parents here in Rutherford County who have indicated interest in Rutherford County. We have meetings, quite frankly, lined up between now and the hearing with parents and community members where they've committed to providing letters of support, testimonials in support of Rocket Ship. I would also say that much of the data that Damon just shared around current staff members who live in Rutherford but work in Nashville and families who have exited Rocketship because they've moved to Rutherford County are really strong data points about the initial interest that I believe will only grow as we continue our community engagement work. I think a student would say a couple of things. It probably depends on the day, but I think the average student would say, I feel safe at Rocketship, I feel loved at Rocketship, and I am growing at Rocketship. I think many of you all know that much of that starts and stops with the teacher. It is why we engage deeply in the professional learning of our teachers. Our teachers, I believe, go above and beyond to ensure that our students not only feel safe, but are also stretched in how they think about their work, the kind of work that they're producing, and they provide sort of exposure and opportunities for those students on a regular. So I believe that our families are our best testimonies about the work that we do, and our students, whether they're current students or alumni who have left Rocketship, and many of them are now in college, would say that they felt loved and supported and that they grew at a Rocketship school.
Now we'll move into some questions on your organizational plan itself. And this one's relatively simple. Tell us about how, once you get the ball rolling, if you get approved, how is the governing board going to reflect local membership? And what's the plan and timeline for addressing the lack of local participation in the current board?
A great question. Before I answer, if we are pivoting from academics, might it be okay for us to swap out a couple of members here at the table? So I'll invite our chief financial officer, our chief people officer, and our chief legal officer to swap out.
It's a good idea.
To the three that just left the table, you're not off the hook. You may have
Those microphones work
questions.
too.
Mr. Daly, while we're restructuring here, I did get a request just now from our board member. Would you be willing to share your opening slides with us?
Absolutely.
If you could just email those to me, I'll be glad to share them with our board members.
Absolutely. So the question around governance board composition, so as you all saw in the application, we have a 14-member board made up of local leaders really across Middle Tennessee. There are a couple of those leaders who live in Rutherford County. Our plan certainly is to ensure that there are two pieces included in the board if and when we expand to Rutherford County. The first is parent representation. You'll see that there is a current parent that sits on our board. We intend to ensure that there is parental representation from a Rutherford parent that is on the board. Interestingly enough, we've got a couple of names of people who have already named their interest. And then the second is to ensure certainly that there is local representation of community leaders, business leaders. What I would share with you is that the best indication of what is possible here in Rutherford County is what you have seen over the last 10 years. So standing up that board of really influential leaders in Nashville, we expect that we would be able to replicate that process to ensure that we're talking to diverse constituencies across Rutherford County, and we're able to enlist their support in helping to govern Rocketship Public Schools here in Rutherford County and across Nashville.
And this question's not on my list, so excuse me a minute, team members, but I meant to ask, I've been meaning to ask this, but where are you in the process of finalizing the agreement between Rocketship National and Rocketship Tennessee? If I understood correctly, it was in the draft stages most recently.
Great question. We'll invite maybe our chief legal officer to share.
I believe you are referring to the asset transfer agreement. Okay. Yes, so we are in the midst of that, and we expect that it will be final and ready for our board meetings prior to July 1, when the transition will occur. We already have board authorization from the two authorizers that we currently work with in Tennessee to make that transfer of governance from the national board to the local board.
Okay, so that's how that works, is the local authorizer has to approve that too? Okay,
Yes.
understood.
So that's the process we went through, seeking material amendments to the charter petitions to allow the governing board to shift from the national board to the local Tennessee board. Those have been approved already.
Great. So is this the first time you've had a Tennessee board? Has it always been a national board that has governed the Tennessee schools?
Yes. In fact, the national board was the applicant for the three
Right.
existing schools.
Right.
And we established a local regional Tennessee board, I believe in 2022, in the spring of 2022, and have been working to perfect their tax-exempt status and get them ready and prepared to take on governance.
Thanks for clarifying that for me. I appreciate it.
What's your plan if it doesn't happen?
I don't foresee any impediment to it happening. It's already been approved. So, but if something unforeseeable were to happen, I imagine that the national board would continue with the local board, which is an operational board at this point, being in full advisory capacity and having the board chairs continue to serve on the national board. But I really do believe that we're pretty well teed up to have this happen. Fingers crossed.
Let me just quickly add here, I don't want it to be lost. There is an existing local regional board. The amendment really is to shift or transfer governance authority to that regional board. So this board, as Maria mentioned, has been in existence for at least 3 years here locally. Really, the amendment is to just shift governance authority, but there has always been and continues to be regional input on that national board, but we feel very confident that that amendment will be fine.
Great, thank you so much for clarifying that for us. It was a little hard to understand what was going on there, so thanks so much. Okay.
You mentioned having parent representation on your school board. What other, can you give us, and obviously the parent power pillar is very important. So what are some of the specific opportunities and avenues for parental involvement that you expect to have?
Sure, and I think our program team, you all feel free to jump in as you see fit. I would say a couple of things. The first is that our parents have an open invitation into our buildings. They are truly partners, whether it is supporting with tutoring, supporting with aftercare, extracurricular activities. There is sort of an open door policy for our families to be a part of the educational program at our schools. Those opportunities range in sort of their scope based on the needs of each of those campuses, but our commitment to families is to ensure that they both feel welcomed, but also have a space to support the work happening in our schools. There are a number of programs that I will not even try to enumerate for this group that engage our families both informally and formally, both around academics and around extracurriculars, but also around advocacy. And so I might invite Lupe Myers or Easter to share just a little bit more about how we engage our parents in both the educational program, but also in some of our community work.
Thank you so much. I myself am a mother to 2 kids, and parent involvement, engagement is important to me, not just as an educator, but also as a parent. And there's a variety of different ways in which we engage parents, both on the cultural front, advocacy front, and academic front. Eric talked a little bit about this during the presentation. All of our teachers and our leaders conduct home visits with every single one of our families at the start of the year. This gives us an opportunity to better understand the family, better understand the needs of the student, for the family to be able to ask any questions of us, and to start the partnership off on a strong foundation. We also offer lots of opportunities, monthly opportunities for families to engage in parent coffees. It's an opportunity for the principal to share what's happening at the school, and an invitation for families to share what is top of mind for them, to engage in things like the academic learnings that we're providing. Sometimes we'll dig into attendance data. Sometimes families will have an opportunity to practice some of the questions that students will encounter on a state assessment. They might dig into a lesson plan. We might teach them specific sounds from the alphabet so that they can practice those at home. So lots of opportunities for how do you take the learning from school and apply it at home as well. We offer things like, of course, back to school night, showcase nights for students to be able to perform, also where students receive awards for things like core values, their academic performance, their attendance, field trips to local colleges or local spaces in the community so that families start to more readily access those spaces. Even in their free time, some of our schools will do an afternoon at the library, a Saturday evening at the library, so we help families navigate those resources as well. And just last night, actually, there was a poster making party at our Rocketship Nashville Northeast campus. So families and their kids came. They had lots of materials. Glitter was flying everywhere. Glue was flying everywhere. And kids made posters with their families to encourage them as they embark on a really intense stretch of learning, and especially as we head into the state assessment. So a really neat opportunity for the community to come together and celebrate the progress that kids are making and also set them up for success for the next few weeks.
Switch gears. Describe and explain the indicated qualifications for a potential school principal and the reasons for not hiring such until December or January.
I want to make sure I heard the question correctly. Qualifications for principals and the decision to hire in the fall. Yep. So I'll invite our Chief People Officer to share a little bit more about our process for sourcing candidates and some of the specific qualifications we look for in school leaders. Very quickly, I will share our timeline as we think about starting a new school. It is one of the things that we take into consideration during that green lighting process that I mentioned. As we start to think about where might we grow, how might we stand up a school, what are some of the milestones we need to make sure we cover, and at what point in the year. We found that the fall is really the best time to ensure that a leader is in place, that they can begin to become versed in the Rocketship model, but also in the Rutherford County community. And then more importantly, that they have an opportunity to coalesce a team that is not just sort of thinking about the building and thinking about hiring teachers, but they're also thinking about how best to engage the community. So that fall timeline comports with our ultimate goal of having the school ready well in advance of opening any doors. And we've seen historically that that timeline has worked, particularly here in Tennessee, as we find a good leader, that leader coalesces a really good team, and that we're ready to start the school. I'll have Lamar Wade, our Chief People Officer, share a little bit more about the qualities of a strong leader.
Thank you, Eric. So I'll start more broadly, just talking about recruitment in general. Super important for us to have high quality leadership, but also when we look at recruitment in general, we want to make sure we're compliant, right? So we look at what's compliant, the compliance needs are for a principal or any person in our schools to make sure they're meeting those needs. So we have partnerships with local universities and colleges to ensure those needs are met. We even impose different internal metrics like credentialing for all of our leadership because we want to make sure that they're able to model behavior for our teachers. When we think about specifically the principal, the reason we delay that later is just to be candid. Folks want to pick their team, right? So we want to make sure they're in place first, the principal, so they have a voice, they're bought into the candidates that we're recruiting, and that they can help build that culture, which we know is really important. Just to piggyback with the parent question, I'm a parent, father of 5, so I've done my duty to multiply. And within Wilson County in particular, and I will say we see that parents in particular sign up to join our staff, which is very important because they really know the needs. We'll see a transition sometimes from operations, typically moving into maybe some para roles, other things where they can volunteer, get a taste for it, and then ultimately even into leadership. So a pretty large population are interested in becoming staff from that parent population as well.
So what is your plan for recruiting and retaining high-quality staff, which I think you kind of answered that a little bit? What's your plan?
Let me jump in. So I'll jump in. The first thing is understanding the need. So we start with looking specifically at the ratios, right, and how we're intending to grow year one and beyond. That gives us an idea of the quantity that we're going to need. I think Eric touched on it earlier. We have close to 30 staff members who actually sit here in Rutherford County, a part of that community, who we suspect will be interested, just because of I-24, if nothing else, to join the Rutherford team. So that is impressive because you usually don't have that in a new startup. So our being embedded in the community is important to us. And then the partnerships that I mentioned earlier with local colleges and universities, we've met with MTSU, Motlow, had some great conversations with them and building that pipeline, as well as other Nashville universities. We know Nashville is known as the Parthenon or the Athens of the South, so we have a lot of universities here that we have partnerships already from our existing schools, and we have the ability, because we're part of a national network, actually to transfer talent. We have people in other regions who are, some of them are native Tennesseans who moved because there wasn't that opportunity in Tennessee initially, who have already expressed interest and signed up to come to Tennessee potentially if this is to come to fruition.
Let me just quickly add a personal note. I shared in the introduction that I've spent a part of my career at an organization called Teach for America. And I served as deputy and interim executive director here in Tennessee, so for Nashville and Chattanooga. And at the heart of that work is really about bringing good talent into our communities that stay, whether they stay in the classroom or they become principals or they become doctors. This is the question around talent is really near and dear to me, because we know that schools only work if we've got the right adults in the right seats. And so we have spent a lot of time learning over the course of these 10 years about really what attracts a high quality teacher to Rocketship, but more importantly, how do we keep them? How do we keep them? And so we can talk a little bit more about sort of our compensation and benefits and all of those things, but it really is a relationship between organization and talent to ensure that they feel both supported, but also valued when they come and work at Rocketship. We have high expectations for our teachers, and we expect them to have high expectations of us and the kind of experience we help to steward for them. So this is such a good question, and it's one that we've spent a lot of time thinking about to ensure that we've got the right staff members at this school.
Okay, before we leave the staffing issue, I do want to talk specifically about staffing for ELLs. And I know you addressed this quite a bit already, but the angle I'm coming from is, in our district, we have such a high number, a growing ELL population. We've had difficulty staffing certified ELL teachers, and our two existing charters have experienced very much the same. So I'm curious as to what are your contingency plans for that? I mean, I know in Metro Nashville, their teachers typically have to be certified in ELL, and I think they even provided the opportunity for them to earn that certification. I'm curious what your contingency plans are for ensuring that you meet that mandated 35-to-1 student-teacher ratio for your ELLs, due to the fact that there's such a shortage of those folks around.
Such a shortage, and certainly something that we're thinking a lot about. Aaron, I don't know if you want to lean in here to share a little bit more, and then Lamar would invite you to share a bit more about how we're trying to attract those sorts of credentialed staff members.
Yes, the 1-to-35 ratio, always a good time to talk about. So what we have done is made sure that, one, we have a full understanding of the different levels of full-time based off what they provide our students in the classroom. So we worked actually with our local districts for staffing documents in order to calculate those 0.33, 0.66, and all those fun things. But making sure that we have our EL direct certified teachers. Most of the time they are internal staff that are looking for the next step up, so we make sure that we provide them those pathways of supports. I know Lamar has met with many universities, as well as our talent team. Jessica Holcomb sources out different paths that accelerate providing those certifications to our team members, and then we find those interested parties and then move them into those places. I think one of the things too is we want to keep the amazing EL certified teachers that we have, so making sure that they have the support, they are seen as valued, and they have the development that they need is really important, as well as make sure that we are talking to our humanities teachers about getting dual certified, as well as our special education teachers about getting dual certified. Since we do have dual students, supporting them in both areas is very important. And then Lamar.
Thanks, Aaron. You said it very well. I would just emphasize once again those partnerships being so important. So we do actively recruit EL certified teachers through those partnerships with bilingual credentialing programs, the university teaching English to speakers of other languages programs, and we have national organizations that specialize in those multilingual programs. Another piece I would highlight is retention, right, for these teachers in particular, because we know it's a war for talent here, and folks are constantly looking for these teachers. In 23-24, we retained 100% of our EL teachers. So that's pretty impressive because of the war for talent that's going on. We see folks doing a lot to attract those teachers to other schools. So for us to have that balanced approach that Eric mentioned, making sure we're meeting the needs, even as going as far as, from a contingency standpoint, having all of our teachers certified in these areas. That way, from a development perspective, they're ready to move on, but they can also, in that integrated model, support each other.
Thank you.
So,
go ahead.
Real quick, lots of contingencies. The only other I would name is that our staffing model is specifically built to ensure that EL specialists are also serving at every grade level. So we've got the EL certified teachers to meet the ratio, and then we have EL specialists at every grade level to support. So there really is sort of a combination of contingencies built into both our model, our finance model, but also our execution of the program.
Thanks. Okay, now let's move into our discussion about facilities. Mr. Lee?
Good afternoon. It is afternoon now officially. As the gentleman who's been building schools for almost 20 years here in Rutherford County, I'm very well versed in the difficulties of getting these things out of the ground, and you guys are probably the first that have come in here that does have at least a semblance of experience with trying to build something. Based on the areas that you've listed in your review, and I'd like to hear more about your 10-month construction schedule, because that's fairly aggressive. And second of all, based on our recent experiences with other charters, they've run into what I suspect is going to be some of the same things you're going to run into. And what is your contingency plan if you're not able to pull that off?
Yep. Sure, thank you. Ben Carson, I'm the CFO at National Rocketship. I lead our real estate and facilities team. I've been founding and building charter schools for 15 years. Couple of things on 10 months. We think about 10 months as shovel in to C of O, not idea to occupancy. We've given ourselves 5 months on the front end for entitlements and financing. We give ourselves 6 weeks on the back end for punch list and overruns. So 10 months shovel in to shovel out is consistent with our recent experiences in the region and elsewhere. And we've tried to give ourselves some slack. I think the second is the primary facility we're targeting now is a light touch renovation, right? We are moving away from brand new ground up, given the calendar, right? That we don't think brand new ground up is something that we are prioritizing to get open in fall of 26. So the building we're looking at, we're under contract. Obviously, we won't close without a charter, but under contract, existing commercial structure, relatively light touch, reconfigure some walls, put some FF&E in, and then likely have to build a storm shelter out back. But something that we think is consistent with other projects we've done in another market. We recently did a light touch commercial plus storm shelter in 6 months from permit to C of O, and so we think we're in the slot. I think to your point about contingency, through our community engagement work, we're constantly looking for partners who might have a church basement, who might have a Sunday school wing, who might have a sort of Boys and Girls Club, that just in case, we could get a few weeks, a semester, a year, just in case, as a temporary facility. It's not what we want to do. We know that schools start best when they start in their permanent location, but we know that we'd be foolish not to have the parachute. Does that answer your question?
Although, I'll make sure I understood what I heard correctly. I understand you are currently under contract with an existing building? What is that building? Can you provide that location for us?
Sure, it's a commercial structure near the Smyrna Airport. It's about a 20,000 square foot office building that would need initially renovation and the addition of a storm shelter. And then our plan would be to phase in kind of a building 2 after a year or so when student demand required it.
Yep, if we get to that point, we'd be most interested in touring that facility with you at some time, just to take a look. Okay. And Ms. Madison, I think it sounded like they answered this question about the storm shelter. That was our next question. That has definitely become a hot topic.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Are you okay with that, Ms. McKinney? Good, great, thank you so much. Mr. Lee?
Back up. Highly happy to see that you're planning on providing transportation. Rutherford County is unique. We, as of today, still provide basically door-to-door transportation for all students, which is a little unique. A lot of the areas around us have gone to parent responsibility zones, or they've got hubs where students are, can, from certain areas can provide, but that's not the model that the county students are used to. Can you explain a little bit more about how you would plan to provide that transportation?
Yeah, I think what we've seen work in Davidson County, which is a different model, is more of the asking families to meet us in the middle, right? And having kind of, instead of going up and down your neighborhood, meet you at the end of the cul-de-sac, right? Or meet you at the outside of your neighborhood. And what we find is that just keeps ride times down. That you guys know, the constraint is usually not 54 kids on a bus, it's how early can you put them on the bus to get the bus full if you're driving up and down every neighborhood. And so what we have found works, and we've got some data that says many of our families were already getting in cars, and so asking them to come to the edge of their neighborhood on their way to work worked well for us. So our plan would be, speak a couple of routes per grade level, and scale it that way, and try to keep ride times down by asking families to meet us at these drop-off hubs.
The only thing I would add here is certainly ride time is a major consideration to ensure that our students aren't on buses for an exorbitant amount of time. We currently operate 14 buses in Nashville. And so this is something that we are pretty fluent in. We continue to assess sort of the strategy with identifying routes and stops and how parents are experiencing transportation, but certainly we intend to provide transportation, and we intend to provide it in a way that is convenient for families, but is also safe for students.
Thank you.
So transportation is a definite part of the plan, not a we hope to.
It is a definite part of the plan.
Okay, great. So let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about, and not knowing the facility itself, it's hard for me to even forecast this, but I want to hear about your detailed plans for safety and security of whatever facility you choose. How did you determine those needs? And let me provide a little background as to why I'm asking that question. It was interesting in your application that it listed, or that indicated the school would be providing security personnel if local law enforcement and the community determined it was necessary. I'm kind of curious what you meant by that, and what is the solid plan to provide a safe and secure facility?
Yeah, sure. I'll start and talk a little bit about the facility, and then I'll ask my colleague, Eric Newman, who mentors all of our operations staff, to talk a little about the people side. So I think what everyone knows is a safe building is only as safe as the people in it and the adults in it, and well-trained adults need a safe facility as well. And so on the facility side, we have evolved over our 15-year history to make sure that we're staying state-of-the-art. What that looks like for us these days is cameras on every point of ingress and egress, is access control with multiple checkpoints, right? Man traps, they call them, like you guys have out here. Impact-resistant film on ground floors, and sort of panic button burglar alarms at every front desk. That's sort of the baseline to make sure that we know who's coming on campus and that there's not an ability to force your way into the building or where the students are. Eric, you want to? And we brought a copy of our school safety plan as sort of collateral.
Yeah, thank you. So safety, obviously, a huge priority for our campuses, for our students, for our staff, and for our families as well. I think I'll talk about the specific trainings and whatnot, but I think at the core of our work, there's a lot of things that we have in our facilities. There's a lot of trainings that we do, but the thing that creates the safest spaces are the strong relationships that we have with our families, and we have with our students, and we have with our teams, right? And so, you know, that's built around if we see something, we say something, we share it, we care for each other. And so both on the front end and on the back end, we make sure that all parties are prepared and understand what our systems and structures are. So throughout the course of the summer, we provide training to each of our regions, each of our schools. Is led by our business operations managers, our operations teams, our principals, and that's executed at the start of the school year. And then there's ongoing drills throughout the course of the year. We partner really closely in our Nashville schools with the Metro Nashville Police Department. We also partner with we're contracted with an organization who provides us with security resource officers at each of our schools who participate in the training, who give feedback to our training, and who are members of our community. They're not just there to direct traffic or to respond in moments of need, but they support students. They say hello to families, and so they're really integrated into that. Another thing that we do, again, there are state requirements for yearly safety walkthroughs at each of our buildings. However, we actually do that on a weekly basis. We have a shorter, it's not quite as intense, but a shorter safety checklist that our schools each run through, again, in partnership with school staff, in partnership with our resource officers, and then 3 times a year we do formal operations visits at each of our schools. I can say that right now, based on all the weekly inspections, the schools are at a 97%. So there's things that might be missed. A visitor doesn't sign in or something like that. And at our last formal visits, all of our schools scored at the highest value of that. So again, safety is really important for us. And again, the training goes to our staff and then our students as well. We have specific resources that are used to train not just our students or staff what to do in an emergency, but our students as well. And then we're really cognizant of that, whether there's an emergency or whether there's a drill. We follow up when we communicate with families so they know that that's happened. They know they can talk about their student about it, and so they're not hearing from them, oh, we had, I think the reality is we have some pretty intense drills that we run, and so it's really important that our families know that that's happening as well.
Just say quickly, Dr. McCann, the explicit answer to your question is yes, we will provide school resource officers. The language in the application is meant to honor any existing partnerships or relationships here in Rutherford County. But as evidenced by our current setup in our Nashville schools, yes, we will provide school resource officers. It's built into our budget and built into our model.
Thanks for that.
And just a couple of pieces of tech I'd mentioned. Number one, Eric mentioned signing in and out. We use a product called Visit You at all of our campuses. It's probably similar to what y'all have here. Take your driver's license, scan it, and if you're on a no-fly list at Rocketship, maybe your mom asks that you not be released to your dad anymore, something like that, then we can flag that on the screen for the staff. And then the other is we don't pick up and drop off. It is the craziest time at any school. And so, Eric, just talk a little bit about the pickup software. Yeah.
So we use a product called Visit Use the Sign-In. They actually were just acquired by Pick My Kid, which is the other one, but each family is assigned a number through
through our Power School information systems. And so every day that parent has that specific identification number when they're going to pick up their student, whether that is on the bus, they're picking their student up, they're showing that as well. We have bus monitors who ride our buses with our students to make sure that they get home safely, whether that's at the school in the drive-through. Again, they'll present the number, or if families are walking up to pick up their student, and then staff will send the students to the designated areas, making sure that they get there safely. And I would say, again, our schools in Tennessee specifically are scoring really highly when it comes to our operation systems, both safe, efficient, and also joyful.
Thanks for that.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
I said I was not going to ask any questions.
No, you go.
But I do have a question. Now that we're in the vein of school safety, and this wasn't asked, but I feel like it needs to be brought up. So within the vein of school safety and providing, what is your contingency plan for your teachers and even those that are not permanent and the people that are in the building that are equipped to handle type of emergencies such as with an active shooter training, such as an active shooter? That's not in your application and it wasn't part of your, but in the vein of talking about safety, I feel that needs to be part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, thank you. So that is all part of the work that we do with our safety training. Again, there are different levels of what that training looks like. Specifically here in Tennessee, we partner really closely with the local authorities, as is outlined by the different updates from the state. So we run a number of different drills. We partner not only with the local authorities, but with our resource officers, and so that everyone has their roles and responsibilities during those times. We do run specific drills for that, so that folks are prepared. We get feedback on that. We adjust our practices each year. The other thing I would say is that, luckily we've never had any of those situations ever occur. However, we are prepared for them. We have recently, there's a new the technology for the alert, the quick alert, to make sure that everyone's notified if there are any of those situations that occur. What I'll say is, and I'll just show you briefly here, at our front office we have our like a safety binder, right? But in each of our classrooms, we know that under those moments of distress can be challenging, and so we have safety cheat sheets for all of our staff that are present, and so you can pass this around, and so you can look at the basics of each procedure are outlined here, so folks can reference them very quickly and then enact what the responsibilities that they have to do. We also include in here, again, just for the purpose of any emergencies and reunification, we'll see student lists, and so there are contact information here, but in the case when there's technology or your system on the computer isn't working, you have that information. You can call the people that you need to. And of course, with the resource officers, we partner with one company that serves each of our schools, and so if there was an emergency or a need, we could move those personnel, and so that their manager would would go to one school, and they could move active duty senior resource officers to another location if there is a higher need there. And again, they do that. We've never had to do that in an actual emergency, but they do circulate and they connect, so that again, it's not just this random person, but you're not my usual officer, but I've seen you before. I know who you are when you're at the school.
So as a clarification, and thank you so much for all the details and being thorough. So part of the training does include your non-permanent, your temporary teachers as well.
Absolutely. So any person that is working with students in our buildings consistently participate in some level of training, much of which is state mandated, whether it is fire drills or active shooter. I will just quickly name that, particularly in Nashville, and you all know this given recent events here in Middle Tennessee, this is one of those areas where we've sort of done a comprehensive audit to make sure that our trainings both are aligned to state law and regulation, but also that they make sense for our families. So yes, all of those adults are engaged in some level of training, and we're deeply sensitive to it given current events here in Middle Tennessee.
Well, thank you. I know this was not part of the questions, but since we were talking about safety, I felt like we needed to address it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. No questions are off the table today, so don't feel bad about that. I do have one more follow-up on that, too. You mentioned a system where visitors scan their license and make sure that they're the appropriate person to pick up that child. Does that system connect to the state offenders database to determine, to make sure that anybody who enters into the school, it does not have some sort of flag that would prevent that?
Yes, any visitor at the school needs to show that and scan in for staff, visitors, anyone, and it will flag on that registry.
Thank you. Okay, the last part of our interview, well, almost the last part of our interview, is going to cover everybody's favorite topic of finance and money. Clearly, the Rocket Ship organization, presents a solid foundational or solid financial foundation. But we do have a few small questions that we just like to ask to help us clarify our own understanding. Okay, Ms. Kaywood?
Explain the discrepancy between your staff budget and staff FTE numbers. What is your intended pupil-to-teacher ratio?
Understand what discrepancy you mentioned? Pupil to FTE, I can pull this up. Sorry, I don't have that one in memory. I think we're looking by full scale for pupils to be 528, and for staff at full scale to be 40. So.
Yeah, I think that question.
13.2 to 1.
I think, just for clarification, I think that question was based on as we kind of looked at your staff FTE numbers and your intended enrollment. It did look like some of your classes, and we're talking basic homeroom classes, your basic classroom setting, appear to have some kind of high ratios. Is that your intention? I mean, what do you typically look for? 25 kids in a class, 20 kids in a class, 30 kids in a class? Typically, what do you look for?
Yeah, we're budgeting, and I'll ask my colleagues to talk about how this works, but from what we're budgeting 96 students on a grade, which would be 4R for us, and I'll ask my colleague to talk a little bit about what 4R means. It basically means 4 cohorts of 24 each. Did you want to talk a little more about how we staff a 4R?
Yeah, sure. So when I was talking about the bell schedule, all of those blocks run concurrent to one another in a grade level. So every grade level will have 2 humanities teachers, 1 math teacher, and 1 learning lab specialist. That's the tutor. And then the enrichment teachers span across multiple grades. So when you take a look at the bell schedule, the humanities teachers are teaching at the same time, 2 different cohorts, and the math, the STEM teachers are teaching opposite our learning lab tutors. So that's how you're able to make 4 different rotations throughout the day.
The only thing that I would add here is, yes, the aspirational student-teacher ratio or teacher-student ratio is 1 to 24. You may be seeing the scaled growth of the school. So in year 1, we of course will not be enrolling 500 plus students. It's closer to 200, which certainly aids us in a host of other ways from a financial standpoint, an enrollment standpoint. But it also might adjust those ratios just a little bit, I think likely in our favor, because we're not growing at scale so quick. So it allows us time to have a model that's commensurate with our finances, but also ensures that we're not overcrowding classrooms and upending the experiences of our educators.
Okay, one more question. What is the plan for achieving financial sustainability? RCS authorized charter schools fell from 27 to 35% below projections this year. How can Rocket Ship operate on a financially sound basis if the same enrollment challenges occur in 26 to 27?
It's a great question, and it's one we've been, as you can imagine, thinking a lot about as we decided to submit the application. We know that revenue in Rutherford County is not the same per pupil as what it is in Metro National. I think what we take confidence from as we decided to start the school. The first is strong track record of starting schools at the number we intended with respect to enrollment. We've got a national and regional team who've shown over and over again their ability to set and hit goals with regards to enrollment, and then to manage staffing and manage non-compensation spend to match that enrollment. That's something that we feel is a strength. The second strength we take pride from is our confidence from is our ability to acquire and deliver facilities that live within our means, right? Whether that's an incubation space, whether that's a phased space, which is planning for us right now. Not having that 600 kid building with 200 kids in it, that'll drown you. I think the third is that we have the ability to leverage a regional and national network, which keeps our overhead proportional, right? We're not carrying a full business office on 200 kids because it's a fee-based, a percentage-based network services fee. We know that a small school pays a small network services fee. And as a national network, we're set up to absorb scaling schools not being able to pay their proportional amount, right, until they're at full scale. And then the final thing is we are, as Easter explained, we are made more confident by the flexibility of the Rocketship model itself. We have schools across the country that are running sustainably with 300 children. We have schools that are running sustainably with 600 children. The rotational model enables us, as long as we can manage those other factors, enables us to staff the school proportionally to enrollment, and again, not have 500 kids worth of adults, 300 kids worth of revenue. I think those are the factors we considered when we were making the decision, but it's the risk that we know we need to manage really closely.
Only other two things I would, one, emphasize and then offer. The benefit of being a part of a network is really felt in this part of the application. To Ben's point, we have a network that is helping to absorb some cost as we continue to grow. So we are not holding costs associated to lots of other things that really matter as you start a school. We can leverage the benefits of the network. The other thing, and it sort of goes without saying, in the application you'll see that our model, our finance model, is not dependent on philanthropy. We did submit some letters of support from places like the Charter School Growth Fund, from City Fund. I'm not sure we submitted a letter from a couple of other philanthropy groups, but there is an opportunity to create some cushion through our philanthropic endeavors, and we fully intend to pursue those avenues as well. But at its base, we have a pretty strong finance model that ensures if we hit those enrollment targets that we can sustain our work over time. Thanks for the question.
Okay, so we'll wrap things up with just a couple of questions on your the portfolio review and performance record section of the application itself. First of all, we took a really good look at the data that you presented and the data that you presented us today in your opening statement, and clearly your performance measures very positively when compared to students in your current setting, and that was pretty impressive to see. But we did note over the years that your performance can fluctuate from year to year, and no surprises there. But ultimately, your success rates, your growth is good, but your success rates don't typically come close to matching the performance success rates of Rutherford County schools. So, what we want you to, how can you assure this committee that you're going to be successful with the students in Rutherford County? Okay.
It's such a great question. It also presents an opportunity for us to learn from Rutherford County and for Rutherford County to learn from us. So I really do believe that the impetus for this application really is centered around a partnership with all of you. You have something to share with us, and we have something to share with you, and we'd like to do that in collaboration with the Rutherford County team. I will tell you, we feel pretty proud of the results we've been able to garner over the last 10 years. I shared on the outset that nearly all of our schools have received level 4 or 5 status. measured by TVOS composite scores. We also have sort of a three-peat reward school at our United Academy campus. We know that with any portfolio of work, there are ongoing opportunities. We see them, we know them, particularly at our Nashville Northeast campus, and are doing the hard work, as I'm sure you all are, to ensure that every child that walks through your doors is receiving the kind of education you promise to them. To the question around, how can we assure you all that we will perform well with the students that we're targeting? I think the best indication of that is what we've been able to do at our Dream Community Prep School, which is our newest campus, which serves a very similar population as the students we're seeking to serve here. As I mentioned, yes, MNPS is a very different district than Rutherford County. We believe that comparatively, we'll be able to stand right up with Rutherford County as we think about special population students, and we intend to continue to massage our model so that it's meeting the needs of the nuanced sort of specific needs of students here in Rutherford County. But I would point you to our work at our newest campus, not just the academic data, but also the enrollment work. And we feel pretty proud about our ability to get strong results for students who need it the most in partnership with districts and authorizers, because we know that the partnerships really make the difference. I'm not sure if any member from our program team wants to speak to maybe some of the things we're doing to ensure that the results continue to rise to the level that we hope for our families in Tennessee.
Thank you for the question. Extremely proud, yes. As a previous principal at one of our locations, I will name that with the success is also ongoing progress and planning when you're striving towards excellence. So definitely partnership in that is foreseen. I will just name some of our strategies, particularly to your point, some of our times and/or years or phases in which we're not comparing to Rutherford County. We have data cycles where we engage in step backs. And in those step backs, we have a priority of strengthening our instructional quality. Intellectual prep is definitely honed in on when it comes to our teacher development, our collaborative meetings, and our partnerships to ensure that all students are being served at high qualities. We have live coaching. I don't know if anyone's mentioned that in the moment, with instructional coaches and teachers so that they're also able to get that development in the moment. So we're definitely striving towards excellence in strengthening our instructional quality. Another bucket is targeting our students for intervention, already mentioned. But we have a priority list of students when it comes to intervention as well. We believe that multiple opportunities for those students to engage in rigorous instruction is important. So we have, this was mentioned, our online learning programs, IXL, Lexia. We're very strategic when it comes to aligning our NWEA strategies and skills so that they are able to transfer and translate to our 10 ready assessment data as well. And we do that in a means of hiring the rigor that our students, increasing the rigor that our students see on a day-to-day basis, making sure that not only are they are growing, but we want to make sure that those students who are on the proficiency cusp, when they grow, they're able to transfer or translate into another proficiency level or to another proficiency band. And so I just want to name that we definitely have an eye on each campus. And during those data step backs, we also partner with our network team, our regional team, and we look forward to partnering with you on gaining some of those key strategies as well.
The only thing I would add here, yes, Tim Ready is, the thing, and we're pursuing it. And we have found that leveraging multiple assessments matters a lot for our families. Growth is really important, and there are some spaces and some years where the magnitude of growth is a bit more than it was the previous year. And so we're proud of the growth that we're seeing across all of our campuses, across all of our quartiles, particularly at our Nashville Northeast campus, We're encouraged by recent data from benchmark assessments and unit assessments and NWEA that suggests that we are climbing closer to where we have been in the past. But again, I am confident and very proud of the portfolio of work that Rocketship has been able to stand over the last decade and believe it could be an absolutely beautiful partnership here in Rutherford County.
So could you kind of share your thoughts with us, team, on what happened with the two schools that had recently come under the authorization of the Tennessee Charter School Commission? I understand Metro Nashville decided to not extend the agreement with one of your schools and declined an application for another new school in recent history. Could you give us your thoughts on what happened there?
Yeah, I'll take a first stab here and then perhaps I'll invite others. I think what's important here, particularly for our newest, our most recent school that went to the state commission, our Rocketship Dream Community Prep School, authorized 3 years ago by the state. We do not believe that that is in any way a reflection of Rocketship and its performance. We believe that is a reflection of an ongoing sort of climate around charter schools and the growth happening in Nashville. We were certainly not the only school denied by MMPS, but then was of course approved by the commission. We also know that in both of these cases, or at least one of those cases, the charter office did recommend renewal, at least for our Nashville Northeast campus, and the board, of course, has authority to reject or accept that recommendation. And so we feel really good about what we put before MMPS, and even more encouraged by the decision of the state to say, hey, we actually believe in your model, we see your results, and we believe that the families in both of those schools deserve to continue to receive services through Rocketship. So education is hard work. We're ready and up for the task. We know that folks are balancing a number of different priorities as they make some of those decisions. I think at the end of the day, we're proud that all of our schools currently exist under proper authorization in the state of Tennessee, 2 of them having been renewed for an additional decade, and feel really good about Rocketship Dream Community Prep, which continues to outperform the schools in their cluster. So yeah, we feel good about it. I'm not sure if anyone else would add anything. No? Okay.
Thank you. And then the last question, Maria and I have already talked about this a little bit on the side, but we had a question down asking about the several items of litigation that the organization itself has faced over the years. And again, there's no judgment there. It's not surprising with a school organization with a history that long to have some litigation. But there appeared to be a pattern of EEOC issues. Now, how can you assure us that that is not an ongoing problem with the organization itself without you revealing any details or anything over those cases?
Thanks for the nuance to the question. I appreciate it. We're trying to maintain.
Hope that helped. Yeah.
And it's a difficult question to answer in a public forum, so thank you for that. The matters that were listed there on the administrative side are not full litigation or arbitration matters. That's the first thing that I'll say. It's an administrative procedure, so it's more readily accessible to someone who would like to state a claim by going to the EEOC or whatever Department of Labor agency there might be in the jurisdiction to state a claim when they feel that they have it. Good news is that out of the less than handful, only one really emerged into full litigation, which is the call to question in the application. And that is ongoing litigation right now. I asked about the nature of these claims. They are varied. There is no pattern. The claims range from age claim, discrimination on the basis of disability. They're all different. So there is no pattern that we see emerging from these data. I can also say one thing. I can also tell you that the way in which we practice, we have a legal team, the way in which we practice
out of prevention than we do. We prefer to prevent disputes, we prefer to prevent misunderstandings that oftentimes happen in workplaces and school buildings. And the way in which we do that is we really partner up with executive directors and chiefs of staff and principals to make sure that we're on the right rules of the road. And when there is a dispute, we really focus on good communication, open, honest, good communication. Because we've found more often than not that if you have a really good conversation where you're really listening to people and trying to address their concerns, you don't get to the place of having any kind of litigation. So that's why I'm happy to report we only have one item of litigation.
Yeah, you got one school that's really doing well. You talked about. I'm just concerned why you hadn't taken the practices that you learned in that school that's successful and incorporate them into other schools that you have that hadn't done as well. You know, I guess I just wonder why that evaluation hadn't been done and why you didn't take some of those things and incorporate it into the other schools that you learned from the school that's doing well.
I think it's an appropriate question, and what I would add here is that we believe we're sort of on the path of continuing to do that. As a region, we continue to evaluate and share practices across campuses. What we have seen is that the current investments, particularly at one campus we're making right now, are actually showing really strong evidence of upward movement on student assessments. I mentioned our growth data earlier this winter, where that school is close to a year's worth of growth in literacy and in math. That is a direct result, Mr. Vaughn, of the shifts that we're making at that school, given the best practices really across the other two campuses. We've seen pretty steady performance across all three campuses. We have certainly hit a patch where there's greater opportunity at one of our campuses. We do not believe that's indicative of our model. It is not indicative of our commitment to excellence. It is indicative of a leadership change at that campus, changes in demography for the students there, and the pace at which change happens has been a little slower. I would imagine that you all can appreciate the time it certainly takes to ensure that every school within your portfolio is performing at its highest level, but we take you at your word that sharing best practices is certainly something we should be doing, we are doing, and the hope is that we can continue to accelerate the performance of our students across all three of those campuses.
I guess one other question about that. What are you doing to the schools that haven't performed as well as you expect? What are your what's your plans and procedures to turn those programs around, whether it be finding somebody else to run the ship or, whatever it takes, because you got to do whatever it takes.
Absolutely. It certainly is a whatever it takes mentality. I know that Tajima Steele spoke to some of this. I'll provide this context. The school in question has historically been a pretty high-performing school. It's our oldest campus. It has been a level 4 or 5 multiple years since its existence. And what we have understood is that given a leadership transition there, it's taken a while to sort of bounce back. That is on top of the pandemic and a couple of other things that have happened there. So we believe we've got the right leader in place who started earlier this school year. We believe that she has coalesced the appropriate leadership team of credentialed assistant principals and interventionists, and we believe we have the right teaching staff there. I'll also just call out, there are nearly 500 students who continue to attend that school every single day. That is a partnership with those families who fully understand the state of the school, but also continue to commit to attending Rocketship Nashville Northeast. We actually feel pretty good about the plans we have in place, starting with the top, to your point, having a right leader, having the right leadership team, but also making adjustments to the instructional model to ensure that where there are gaps, we are filling them, leveraging our network team to provide even more focused interventions for that school. All of those things, I assure you, are currently happening, and we are encouraged by the most recent academic data that suggests that that school is on an upward trend. So we agree with you. Everything has to be available to ensure that we turn that school around. And my commitment to you and to the 500 families that attend that school is that that is happening, and that we expect to see much stronger results over the next months and years. So thank you for the question. I think it's an appropriate one, especially as you all consider the strength of our application.
Any other questions from any of the committee members? Anything else you want to know or ask?
I do have.
Ms. Rosales, go
This is my
ahead.
last question. This wasn't on the sheet, so it's another question that was not there.
Again, no questions are off the table. So,
But it was something that was noted in your application, and I just want to pick your brain a little bit. And how were you able to have a low expulsion rate? That was one thing that was really highlighted and emphasized in your application, so I just would like to know what tokens, gold tokens you can share with us in achieving a low expulsion rate. And kudos to you guys for achieving that.
I appreciate the question. I'll certainly invite program team members to jump in here. I will share one thing, Board Member Rosales. It begins with mindset. We want our kids in our schools. We do not want our kids pushed out of our schools. If all of the adults in the building maintain that mindset, then we look for creative ways to intervene, to support students who are having difficult moments. And a last resort is exiting a student from our school. So it starts with mindset that I think starts at the top with our leaders, that certainly is embraced across all of our staff members. I'll invite maybe our program team members to maybe share more about our interventions and PBIS plans that are maybe more interventions that prevent any additional escalation.
Yeah, I just want to start by echoing what Eric said. We don't expel students because we believe in order to have access to a high-quality education, you actually have to have a seat at the table. You have to be in the classroom. You have to be engaged in the learning. And in the initial presentation deck, there was a section in which we outlined all behavior is learned. And anytime a student produces an action, there is a consequence to that, whether positive or negative. And what we attempt to do in all of our schools is to teach students this action is connected to this consequence. This choice results in this reward or this consequence. We have our positive behavior intervention system that we employ at all of our schools. We have teachers who are trained in our model. We use Team Chart to ensure that students receive feedback on each of their actions. So it might sound something like, Troy, great job. I see that you are focused in this conversation, and I'm going to move your magnet up so that students see, okay, great, I'm doing this thing and it's connected to this reward. Or the inverse of that might sound something like, Rosa, I need your eyes focused on me. When I see that you are back in the conversation, I will move your magnet back up, right? And so students see, okay, I'm doing this thing and it's resulting in this consequence. We also recognize that students need deeper supports. So Erin talked a little bit about more individualized learning behavior plans that students have to support their behavioral needs. We do things like lunch bunches. We do social emotional learning lessons for all of our students. Some of our students might get additional small group support to be able to practice some of those skills. If you walk into a kindergarten classroom, we do community meeting across all of our spaces. We start our day with launch, so our entire community comes together. Our families are there. We ground our schools and our core values. The 5th core value is actually selected by the school community, by the families in the school. And we center ourselves in, here's what we're here to accomplish today. And then we get into community meeting in individual classrooms. So if you walk into a kindergarten classroom, at the very beginning of the year, students are learning, hi, my name is Easter. What's your name? That's an opportunity for students to build community. And so respect is very much ingrained and embedded into like how we work to teach our kids with, of course, additional specialized supports. So we believe that all behavior is learned, and we believe that kids don't just deserve but have a right to be in school if we hope to achieve our mission of making sure that kids go to and through college.
Got one other thing. This process is pretty difficult, and the reason for that is that the expectations in Rutherford County is pretty high. You mentioned level 4s and level 5s in schools. Level 4s here don't get it. Our expectations are all 5s. So, I just want you to keep that in mind, that learn from this application process and what Mr. McCann, because he's shown to y'all what the expectations are here. And we just need for you to check all the boxes. And that's what it's all about. So, whatever it takes.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from your team, Rocket Ship?
No questions. Let us leave you with three things. First, thank you. As much as this is a lift for us, it's a lift for you. So we appreciate the due diligence of reading the application, asking really good questions, and to Board Member Vaughn's point, continuing to elevate the expectation here in Rutherford County. We want to be a part of that. Second thing I'd leave you with is this is really about a partnership. For as much talk as there is about charters and non-charters and dips in performance or not, we know that when adults are in partnership and are working together, students win. And we deeply want that partnership with Rutherford County. Our aspirations are the same. We want level 5s, we want reward schools, and we want to do that in ways that honor our families and honor the partnership in our local communities. And then the third, we've got a couple of resources we want to leave each of you with. Our Chief of Staff, Damon Hardy, has a folder with a year-end review report about our work, not just in Tennessee, but across our network. And we will certainly ensure that you've got the presentation earlier today. Invite all of you to visit one of our campuses in Nashville to get a better sense of what's happening. I led at the beginning with, we're not pitching an idea. Some charters are pitching an idea to you about what might happen. We're telling you that this is what we've done and how we want to improve it here in Rutherford County. And so that's the hope. That's what led us to apply, and I hope that's been the spirit of this conversation. So just thanks again for the opportunity, and we look forward to engaging with you all more.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. Clearly, we didn't meet our goal of an hour and a half, but that is quite okay. We learned a lot from you today. I will just clue you in a little bit on next steps. What will happen next is the committee will consider the scoring rubrics and submit their revised rubrics to me. We meet again on April the 7th to develop our final recommendation to make and present to our Board of Education. I will present that recommendation formally to the board at their work session on April the 22nd. That's the Tuesday of board meeting week. And then they will vote on the resolution, whether to approve or not to approve, on their regular board meeting of April 24th. That's when the vote will be taken. Okay, at least that's the current plan. All right. Again, thank you all so much for your time. It was a pleasure meeting each of you, and have a great rest of your day. Take care. Thank you.